Thank you for that very warm welcome. First, thank you very much to Free Press Unlimited for having me here today from Dakar. I'd just like to underline in the name of UNESCO my particular pleasure in the fact that the women who are speaking today are all women, in fact. And so in the vein of hope that Leon mentioned this morning, it also underlines the fact that women are both targets of crimes against journalists, but also part of the solution. So I'm honored today to be by the side of these incredible women and awardees to celebrate gender equality both in the media and in the fight against impunity. As Leon mentioned this morning, I keep on saying this morning, I think I still have jet lag. This afternoon, he underlined these statistics that are crucial in framing the scope of impunity and also the changing nature of impunity. Just to give you background before talking about the concrete solutions of hope that we are implementing on the ground in West Africa. In the past decade, more than 800 journalists have been killed for reporting the news and bringing information to the public. On average, that is one death every week. In 9 out of 10 cases, the killers go unpunished. UNESCO's Director General published a 2016 report on the safety of journalists and the danger of impunity. And in it, she underlined that 827 killings of journalists have been condemned by UNESCO from 2006 to 2015. 95% of those journalists who have been killed are local. Only 8% of these cases have been reported resolved. 38% of the journalists killed worked in print media. Over the course of the last decade, we can also see, unfortunately, an increase in the rate of killings of journalists. Between 2006 and 2011, the average annual rate was 67 killings, and it increased to an average of 106 killings per annum between 2012 and 2015. We also see a change in the rates and ways of attacks and the journalists that are targeted, noticing particularly an increase in targets of online journalists and journalists working in television, which underline one of our strong commitments to also translate the principles of freedom of expression and safety of journalists to the online and digital sphere. Impunity leads to more killings and is often a symptom of worsening conflict and the breakdown of law and judicial systems. At UNESCO, in the framework of the UN Plan of Action, we have understood that to fight this impunity, part of the solution that we need to provide is also training security forces and judges on the ground so that they understand the role of the media in promoting democracy, but also their responsibility to protect freedom of expression and promote the safety of journalists. Concretely, what are we doing on the ground in West Africa? We have, for the past several years, since 2013, been training security forces so that they understand freedom of expression as a human right. One of the things that I've noticed in training security forces across West Africa is that oftentimes security forces see the media as their enemy and not as their natural partner. And as we're all humans, one of the things that happens is that what we don't understand, we fear. So what we have been working to do is to train security forces and to train judges to understand the role of the media and to also understand their shared mission with the media to ensure the safety of citizens and access to public information. The objective of this project overall is to make sure that we can improve the relationships between security forces and media professionals while also ensuring transparency and accountability in the security forces and judicial systems in the country that we're working in. I'd like now to take 2 minutes to show you very concretely the work that we've been doing on the ground in one of the countries in West Africa, the Gambia. As many of you surely know, The Gambia has gone through an incredible change in democratic process and has elected a new president in February. One of the main commitments of the newly elected president was to ensure freedom of expression and access to information. So we have been working with the president and the relevant ministries in training their security forces and their judges. In the absence of the voices of beneficiaries that can't be with me here today on the stage, I would like to cede my voice to the voice of the people who have been trained by us, so you can hear a little bit more about the work that we've been doing.
On June 5th, 2017, members of the Gambian security forces and media professionals meet for a week-long training on freedom of expression and the safety of journalists.
It was important for me to see that there is interest from the side of the security forces. So we had representatives from the security forces there attending, listening to something I can imagine completely new to them. Life has changed, and they are open-minded to listen to the voice of the new times.
In the framework of this plan of action, the workshop aimed to promote an enabling environment for freedom of expression, press freedom, and the safety of journalists by facilitating media pluralism.
This training is very, very important for us. It is going to give me the opportunity and all other participants for us to be informed, and also to kind of erase that animosity that used to exist between the journalists, the members of the media, and also members of the security fraternity.
We cannot do our job without the security forces. They cannot do their jobs without us. They need us and we need them.
As part of efforts to nurture the Gambia's new democracy, the government and stakeholders in the media are promoting a media-friendly environment that will empower and protect journalists, as well as consolidate the relationship between the media and security forces in the country.
We are definitely aiming, to be an example within the sub-region. I mean, as far as the freedom of the press is concerned, we don't want to see any journalists being persecuted or imprisoned or, harassed just because of what they are doing or what they are saying.
With the new era, we thought it was very important also that we come here and seize the new opportunity to really help the security forces to understand their obligations, but also to create this enabling environment whereby journalists and security forces can start to build new bridges.
The overall objective of this project is to contribute to better democratic governance through improving freedom of the press and the quality of information available to the population. This project is also implemented in the framework of UNESCO's International Program for the Development of Communication, IPDC.
So you can see here from the feedback from both the security forces and the journalists, this platform for training really provided the first opportunity for the two of them to sit in a room together and to talk off the record, off the field, so that they can understand really what each person's job is and how they can work together more efficiently. These trainings are based on a manual that UNESCO has produced on freedom of expression and public order. Everything that we produce is openly licensed, so these manuals are regularly translated also into local languages in the African context and used freely. Most recently, the manual has officially been adopted by the Peacekeeping School in Mali and the Ministry of the Interior, and is now used as part of the training provided in fighting terrorism and extremism in West Africa through the Peacekeeping School in Bamako, understanding that there is no peace and sustainable development without freedom of expression and access to information. This training manual is really intended to provide concrete solutions both to the side of the security forces but also to the media. And here I'd like to underline that we really have a multi-tiered approach where training security forces is part of our approach, and the other part is really ensuring professional journalistic standards for the media so that the understanding of how the two can work together in the long term is really viable. The module, concretely, is broken down into 7 different sections that looks at journalism, democracy, and freedom of expression, the safety of journalists, provides a toolbox for journalists covering conflicts, riots, and demonstrations, looks at how security forces can ensure journalists access the information that they need, operational safety procedures when dealing with the media for the security forces, and coverage of judicial proceedings by the media. We also provide information as it concerns ensuring within security forces there is an infrastructure present that looks at how to communicate efficiently with the media. Out of these trainings, some very surprising results have occurred. One of them, in fact, in Mali, is that in the framework of these collaborations between media and security forces, an online web platform named kunafoni.com worked together, in fact, with Free Press Unlimited and UNESCO to develop a hip-hop video that you can look at online, which is in French and Bambara, dialoguing between the police and the media about all the stereotypes that they have about one another and how, in fact, they don't understand each other and what needs to be done in order for them to really understand each other. This video went viral in Mali and was played on national television to put the chief of police of Mali in the same room as online bloggers and web journalists and say, let's make a hip-hop video about a conversation of our misunderstandings before this training would not concretely have been possible. And so these trainings really establish a platform for trust going forward between the two bodies so that they can really work together to ensure peace and security in their country. When the police concretely respect, protect, and defend human rights, public trust is enhanced not only between the media and security forces, but also between security forces and civil society at large. Prosecutions through the courts are more likely to be successful because security forces understand freedom of expression and its enshrinement in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the police are viewed as being part of the community. Again, one of the outcomes of the trainings that we've done in Mali is an online journal and gazette has been published in Bamako, in Bambara and French, called Le Courrier de la Paix, that is co-published between the media and security forces that really looks at how they can work together, how they can share information, and how they can ensure that the public has the information that they need to deal with a very sensitive context, in fact, in Bamako and also in the north of Mali. I'd like to, once again, to talk about the kind of concrete impact on the ground, cite one of the police sergeants, Kali Diakite, who in fact was a participant in our first training, then became an assistant trainer in the second training, and now is a qualified trainer providing trainings to forces in the north of Mali, in territories that many people would not be able to access, in partnership, of course, with UNESCO and Article 19 and European Union, among others, where he says, what do journalists do and how do they work? What are their expectations and what do security forces need to do in order to collaborate with them? The response to these questions taught me not only about the importance of journalists in our society, but also showed me how necessary it is to work jointly with the media. This exchange between journalists and security forces allowed us to create a dialogue with the journalists so that they can safely and freely work to ensure the right to freedom of expression and access to information for citizens is promoted and preserved. I'd like to close, especially because, as Leon so eloquently underlined in his opening speech, today is really about obviously acknowledging problems, but also reiterating that there is hope and there are concrete solutions on the ground, drawing examples from the Gambia and from Mali, among other countries, that if there are platforms that are multi-stakeholder, that can work together across disciplines, across international organizations and NGOs and civil society to ensure that freedom of expression and access to information are understood as indissociable from sustainable development, peace, and justice. Concrete change is possible. We see it in Mali as it concerns the work going on in Timbuktu and Bamako. We see it in the Gambia as it concerns these trainings that have now led, in fact, to judicial reform as it concerns how freedom of expression is taken into consideration in local laws. And we see it going forward in the trainings that UNESCO is doing with our partners of both security forces and judges from across the African continent and around the world. So I would like to end on this note of hope and say together we are stronger, and together we can both raise awareness of the issue of impunity, but also fight it successfully across borders and across silos. Thank you very much for listening.